This is the Miserable Podcast. We are back and we are rocking, we are rolling, and it is a little hot in here. Then again, the two people that said that are wearing a sweatshirt and a flannel. The guy who is wearing the t-shirt, which is thin, but also the body, which is thin, doesn't seem to think it's hot. So maybe it's just us.
We're also fat.
Speak for yourself. Here we are. We are going to record a podcast. That's why we're here. That's why we're sitting in these chairs, wearing these headphones, talking into these mics, because it is the thing to do. Feels good to be here. I got Kenny K. Soul Thompson. How you doing?
Good.
Paulie Pie Howard. How you doing?
Good.
Don't copy my answer.
I am spectacular. I'm better than you.
It's too late. You're just good.
No.
And thanks for asking, guys. I'm doing fine.
Nobody cares.
Nobody cares. Not even me. All right. We got a great topic for you today.
We do?
Me and Kenny know what it is. Paulie doesn't know what it is, but he's going to find out right now. Today, we are going to talk about dealing with or living with or navigating the ups and downs of the creative entrepreneurial life.
All right. Thanks for listening.
See you next week.
Record your own podcast.
I was laughing so hard at the end of the podcast you guys did, Paulie, or you were like, hopefully you guys got something from this. One of you said that, and you're like, if not, and Phil was like, tough. Oh, man, that was good.
That's real life Phil, too.
Speaking of which, my mom watched that podcast. First one that she's watched. And I was like, you watched the whole thing? She was like, yeah, it was so good. It was like, I was like, it was over an hour long. And she was like, yeah. I was like, you sat through an hour-long podcast.
That's encouraging because that's our target market.
Moms? Or just Paulie's mom?
Paulie's mom.
Specifically just your mom.
Guys, we've succeeded.
We've done it.
We've reached the pinnacle.
Peak miserable company attained. All right. Camille, thank you for watching the podcast. That's actually really cool. I can imagine her sitting there going, they're so cute. They're just so cute. Squeezing her phone. She can't get to our cheeks. Squeezing the side of her phone. Why is this pausing? They're so cute.
Oh, man.
Oh, man.
That's funny.
Yeah, it is.
So here we go. We were talking about how life can be a roller coaster ride. And considering who we seem to be speaking to the most, that's kind of like creatives or people with an entrepreneurial spirit, people who are just the kind of people who haven't settled. They've set goals. They have things that they want to do. When you set out on an endeavor, probably of any kind, you got good days, you got bad days, you got highs, you got lows, you got ups, you got downs. That's something that I've experienced. But what I'm really interested in this conversation is really two things. Number one, how dynamic are you as individuals? How are you like high highs and low lows and back and forth a lot? Is it like quicks ups and downs? Is it longer curves of up and downs like that? You know, kind of how your roller coaster ride is. And then the other aspect of that is in what areas. So that could mean in confidence, in motivation, et cetera, et cetera.
Inspiration,
yeah. So who wants to kick us off? Like, what kind of ride do you seem to be on? And then we're going to address like how we would like it to be, and then maybe what we can do to get more on that.
You want to go? You want me to go?
Go.
All right. Thanks for telling me.
every time y'all like whisper stuff like that, all I'm thinking about is how difficult it's going to be to set the gate on your voices. Stop! Don't do it on purpose. Sorry, Polly. Go ahead.
So I would say that I'm probably, and this is just when it comes to like this topic. I don't necessarily think this is me as a whole, but I'm probably that kind of person that is more of a gradual curve. I'm often like not even aware of when I have those shifts. Like, and you guys know this about me. Like, I'll find myself in like low points or slums, and I usually don't realize it until I'm like a week in. Like,
Right.
I'll observe, like, I'll just be going through life, and then after a certain amount of time, I'll observe that I probably am not in a good spot right now. Usually, I mean, this is something that you told me a long time, or maybe not a long time ago, maybe sometime like last year or the year before. It's something that I've struggled with in more recent years, not so much when I was, maybe 5 years ago or less, or more. I mean, that I get in these sort of ruts as frequently. So it used to be less frequent, but what I usually find is the reason for that is not necessarily because I've lost an inspiration or like something was removed without my control, but it's rather because of like steps that I didn't take that brought me there. And it's not even necessarily was intentional. Sometimes those things can start out small, like a single decision that over time sort of built up.
So yours is more emotional, caused by just practical things. So like, is that what you would say? It's like, you're talking about like an emotional slump.
Yeah. And that manifests for me because creativity, and I mean, I've been to varying degrees self-employed for over 10 years. So those two things, both the creative and the entrepreneur side of me, are like key elements of who I am. So those emotional sorts of like ups and downs greatly affect those things.
So you're saying it's kind of a gradual slope downward, and then you can usually look back and say, okay, I wasn't disciplined in this, or I didn't do this. I could have done this to probably help avoid it.
Right.
And then how is the trip back up? Like once you realize it, is it a gradual thing again, or is it like snap out of it?
It's like in between. It's not as gradual as it was to get into that spot. But once I'm like aware of it, I know, and this is kind of what I was getting at. Like we had a conversation a while back. And this is something that I feel like I should have known because it's a common sense, not to sound like I'm discrediting your advice, but, more like discrediting myself. But, it's the way out now for me. And I think that's changed in more recent years. But the way out for me now is just to find things that I can easily accomplish that compound in the opposite direction. Because usually it's just the reverse of how I got there. Gotcha. Like I, was tired one day, so I didn't do something and I put it off to the next day. And then decisions like that building up, over the course of a week or two or months, whatever the case may be, got me there. So for me, it's not necessarily a snap out of it, but it's once I realize where I'm at, I already feel better because I can sort of put a face to the situation that I'm in. And it also enables me to be aware that I need to put a game plan together to get out. And because for a good portion of that low period, I feel like it's something that's out of my control because I'm not realizing where I'm at and that I do have the ability to pull myself out of it.
Right.
If that makes sense.
So it's more like gradual slope. Then you spend some time, and then it's gradual back, and you spend some time, and
it's just a much faster recovery usually.
Okay, gotcha.
Than it is. Yeah.
I think Go ahead.
I was gonna go ahead with me.
Oh, go ahead. No.
We'll just go around the table.
All right.
I'll be next.
Man, I would say, like, really, I'm all over the place. Like, it's not gradual. I crash. So it's like, I'm like, what was that song? I went to bed on top of the world. Today the world's on top of me. Like, that's my life.
Mm-hmm.
Like, one day, one hour, one morning is like fantastic. Confidence, faith. I mean, everything's soaring. And then I'm one of those people that, like, one thing can send me to the bottom. And so this used to be me. I used to be, there's no in between with me. I think y'all know that. Y'all probably know me long enough. I'm like, it's like 100 or 0.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like full throttle or just on the brake. And it used to be that I would be like 100. And then when I'd go to 0, I'd be stuck there. And then I'd go to 100. And then when I went to 0, I'd be stuck there. And now what happens is, like, I think that I'm at 0 more frequently, but for way shorter time periods. So, and I think what that is like, and I'm beginning to discover, and this is where we'll get in the next part, I'm beginning to discover the things that send me to 0. And one of them I realized, and I think I'll open up, like, on this podcast, because, like, I haven't vocalized it, because it's like one of those things I'm a little insecure about, But, like, and now it's like, wake up at 6 a.m., I'm at 100 till 11. Something happens, I'm at 0. 11:30, I'm back to 100. You know what I mean? 1 p.m., back to 0. So it's like, man, I'm like,
So in one day,
very dynamic. But the part of that, I'm realizing two things: is how to deal with that crash and, like, realizing what causes it, and then taking control of my mind and my emotions. And then the other thing is trying to learn to not just be at 100, trying to find the middle ground sometimes. Sure. And because I just, there was a long time where I did not understand how to stop. Like, you know what I mean? It was just like, I did not understand that dynamic. Like, it was hard to hang out with people. It was hard to go do things. I didn't want to go to the movie. We go to the movies. It's 2 hours. I got to work.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, that's just how I thought. And it was just like, until I couldn't keep my eyes open, or until my wife was just so mad at me, she yelled at me. That's when I stopped. And then whenever I'm stopping, all I want to do is just be working again. So having kids has helped me with that, because now I'm starting to learn to just turn it off. Yeah, it could, because I'm learning how much I enjoy turning it off now.
Yeah,
and just like having those
especially
moments
for the right reasons.
Like having those moments to, like, roll around on the floor and just do all those things. Like, so those are the two things I'm learning. But I'm very dynamic, and it's like high highs and low lows, high highs and low lows. And then I'll get to how I'm learning, what I'm learning about myself here in a minute. What about you?
I think I'm sort of like you. I think it's very sporadic, except it's not all necessarily in one day. Mine is a little bit more, there's a little more distance in between different ups and downs. But I've come to realize that a lot of my downs are kind of self-inflicted. Little things like, sometimes it's a battle between, like, laziness and fear. I did a video recently, and I was insecure about it, and I was just like, and I sat on it for, like, weeks, and I just ended up putting it out because I had to, like, work myself up, but it brought me down a little bit, and I think when I feel down, it's so hard to do, but I really have to try to push through it, because if I don't, I'll be down for a while. And like you, like, one thing can happen and it's like I was on 100 yesterday, and this one thing happens, and now I'm down.
One comment or one one reaction, and that's one thing that I just that what you said like rings true to me about you is that you're pretty like steadfast, but it's probably more cumulative effect, you know. Whereas me, it's just like it could be 99 good things, and that 100th one. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And it doesn't take like 100, 101, 102, 103, 100. It's just the 100. I'm gone, you know? So that, just hearing you guys describe it, like I can like see that.
You said something interesting. I just wanted to like just mention. You're talking about how the video that you made, you were like insecure about it.
Right.
And you sat on it for a long time. I just think it's an interesting dynamic. And I think I would guess that all creatives feel this way to a degree, and it affects them in somewhat similar ways for the most part. It's funny to me, interesting rather, that something you could do in your creativity, you trying something which is generally viewed as like a good thing, right? How am I trying to say this? Like it brought you down,
right?
Even though the thing in itself, maybe not the subject matter or the effort that you put into it, whatever. Like, because there's some element of, and I know you and I talked about this a little bit last night, but there's some element of that specific project or endeavor that took a negative spin internally for you when it shouldn't have, because the actual process of being creative and creating is the thing that usually gives creatives energy.
But you know what it is? It's, and you guys all understand this as creatives. When you have an idea, you see it, you visualize it, and you know exactly how you want it to look. And the struggle is how to get from idea to
the product,
to the product.
Right.
So sometimes when you try it out, the idea that you had in your head, the product doesn't match up exactly. And that makes you think less of what you've done.
So, okay, so let's talk about the roller coaster ride then. Is in that case, when I'm talking about like 100 to 0, or like for you, what is it? Is it confidence?
I think so.
What else could it be? Because my mind's kind of going to confidence too.
Like in his situation would be, you're saying, as far as confidence goes, like confidence in his ability to have gotten that product that he saw in his head. And when he maybe if the struggle for you, and I'm just guessing here, if the struggle for you was you saw this project in your head and then you executed it and you're like, this isn't what I saw. So you thought less of yourself and less of the project because you weren't able to get to where you saw, which is reasonable, right?
Right.
Because sometimes we have an idea for something and in our heads, sounds good. Sounds like it might be the best thing we've ever done. And then we start working on it and we're like, God, what was I thinking? This is like silly, or there's like, it's not even like a lack of confidence necessarily in that point. And I'm in that situation. But sometimes you start working on a project and you realize that it actually just wasn't a good idea, which is normal and reasonable. That happens.
Yeah, definitely.
So because you got there, and I think that video that you're referring to is the one that you put out a couple days ago.
Yeah.
I thought it was a good idea.
Not a great video, but a good. No, I'm just kidding.
So I think let me ask you: is what you're saying the confidence spin is because you didn't execute what you saw in your head potentially?
What dropped?
Was it confidence in
like
yourself?
I'm trying to name the enemy. I'm trying to identify
Well,
what's happening. So like,
I got you.
So like, I can say, like, I'm trying to think in my own personal, when I'm saying 100 to 0, what's the meter? What am I measuring?
I think it's a variation of things. Like in that specific scenario, it was confidence and motivation, because it takes that motivation for me to be able to create the next video and the next video and the next video and like all of that.
But my argument would be like, if we're gonna boil it down to reduce it to its simplest, to the root, I would say that you lost motivation because you lost confidence.
Yes, I agree.
So like, because there's all those periphery things with the motivation and inspiration and all the other things, but I'm like trying to figure out what is it that takes the hit, that causes all the other, like what's the foundation that begins to crumble, that causes all of those other things. And I keep landing on confidence.
Yeah.
Probably the case for me too.
Yeah.
Because I think we've all had clients, and like we've talked about that anxiety of showing your work to your client. And like, I don't know if I've ever done this, probably wanted to, but like there's been times where it's like I'm done with something and I just want to put it off because I don't even want to show the person.
Feedback or something.
I'm fearing like the rejection or something like that, which is lack of confidence.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Well,
Were you about to say something?
Let me ask you this. What if you get the finished product for the client, you send it and the client loves it, but you're not happy with it? Does that bring you to 0 as well?
No, I would say I'm relieved. But I'm still like,
Okay.
missed the mark, which that happens, man.
Right.
Like, especially like, this is one thing I found like working, I used to wonder as I produced and wrote, like, well, man, like, I just can't get this song to work. And I would be like, oh man, there's people like, they're so much better than me, and like, here I am, I have a song, I can't even make it. It's my song, and this was years ago. And then as you begin to get around people who are doing it at a very high level, you realize it's like 99% of songs are never even published. They're not even put out.
Yeah.
Matter of fact, the way the game works is like an artist will work with 100 producers, 100 songwriters, and they'll write 200 songs and they'll keep 6 of them. And then it's like, as I began to learn that, I was like, oh, I don't stink. This is just one of those things. Sometimes a great production just happens, right?
Yeah.
Now, the more skilled you are, the better tools you have, all of those things, you can hit that mark more often, but like there's still, and people that are getting paid millions of dollars to do music in some way, they're creating things all the time that don't make their own cut. So that helped, like, that helped when I began to learn that, is like, sitting in with artists and being like, yo, whatever happened to that song you were working on 2 years ago? Like, which one?
Yeah.
There was probably 200 or 300 of those. Like, yeah, no, I don't, never touching it. So, that's one thing. But that's what was curious to me about like the topic is like, when we say that, like, what are we talking about? Because I know that when I'm at 0 or when I'm on the low end, it's like my internal dialogue is just me putting myself down. So that's like the definition of lack of confidence. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Right.
Do you feel like, and I know this is like where I get, I would agree 100% that it's confidence and it manifests itself in different ways. And then for me is what it usually does. I find it's hard and takes a lot of energy to remain confident. So like if you're facing something where you feel that lack of confidence and you're trying to motivate yourself to feel better about it, you get tired.
Yeah.
And then I think for me, that's where it leads to that, like that lower slump, is because I just get worn out trying to like keep up with the regular requirements of life and then also be my own cheerleader. Because it's hard as a creative to feel, not to feel confident, but to not too heavily critique yourself. And if you're facing that additional layer of a lack of situational confidence, like I feel like it just gets tiring for me, you know?
That's like, sometimes I envy the people that I see that at least appear to not even consider like confidence. Like there's some creatives that just appear like they're just doing what they do. And sometimes I look and I'm like, is that what I look like? Is that just a facade? Or like or do they actually they don't even think about what we're talking about. They don't have highs and lows. They're just like doing their thing, you know? When it comes to their creative, life, they're going to have highs and lows in life. But when it comes to like the creative endeavor, it's like I look at some people sometimes and I'm like, they don't care. Or it appears that they don't, you know what I mean? So maybe I just need to start reaching out to some of those people like, hey, let me ask you a question.
I mean,
do you ever get like not confident in what you're doing and like, and just see what they say?
I think it probably is a mixture. There probably are some people who are on like the opposite end of the spectrum and have like, they remain at a higher percentage, maybe not like 100%. Maybe they're like always like an 80 or almost always. But then when they hit their zero, it's like negative 100. And you just don't know about it because they just disconnect. So you don't, you only, especially with things that you're like, if you're not seeing those people every day, first of all, it's hard to judge because how are you knowing what they're going through social media, right? You made me think of a photographer that I've been following for years. Great guy, Jeremy Cowart. He founder of Help Portrait. He's a documentary photographer. He's like, he's done a ton of like internationally acclaimed work. He went to Haiti after the earthquake, and did like this series where he had people write messages of hope and love on rubble. Like whatever, basically like, that he would say like, I would like to take your portrait, and is there something positive that you can say that you want people to see despite the destruction and the loss that you're suffering? I think it's called Voices of Haiti. An incredible project. And I know he's not this way. I've had some personal interaction with him over the years. And he's also a very like transparent person, but for the most part, I watch him online and like, I feel like every time he creates a new body of work, he's like, I'm creating my favorite work I've ever done in my career. And I'm like, shut up. Like, how can you always be, so confident
that's in like that? Every time I see an artist say, this album I'm working on is the best music I've ever made, I'm always like, oh no. Yeah. And like without fail, it's always like, no. Like, and not just me
think of Apple
that.
computers. This is the thinnest and fastest iPhone we've ever made. Well, yeah, you got to keep making it better.
But maybe that's part of it. Somebody like Michael Jordan steps out on the court, and maybe he has a small thought that he won't be as good as he is on other nights, but then he just goes, no, I'm great. And he just keeps telling himself that until he performs that way. Mm-hmm. So maybe that's because somebody like Steve Jobs, like who just, I know what I'm doing is right. like it's kind of egotistical in a way, but at the same time, that confidence, I think, allows you, believing in that confidence allows you to perform at such a high level a lot of the times.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think you have to be careful not to criticize yourself too much,
and
too.
just real quick, to that point, like you start reading some of those guys' biographies and stuff, they were 100 to 0 type people.
Really?
Like, oh yeah, like they were super confident, but like serious battles with psychological things and depression. And a lot of the people that a lot of the people that I have studied or seen that are just like genius level people also seem to have a lot of demons, you know? So, and like Steve Jobs being one of those, I read the Steve
Walter
Jobs
Isaacs.
biography, Walter Isaacson, the same one who did the Einstein biography. I read, gosh, that book is like it's the longest biography like ever. But yeah, like I've noticed that too. It's like, man, if you're gonna be, you know, it's and you know, people say that too. Like even people, the way they talk about Michael Jordan, and they're like, yo, like there's a little bit of crazy in him. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So that's like there's almost that. You know, they
Necessary
say
darkness.
like every genius is crazy and like a necessary darkness type thing. Like, so yeah, there seems to be that kind of common thread among some of those people that do things of great consequence. Let's put it that way. Is like, you know, I think maybe they capitalized on those 100 moments and were driven and just pushed and pushed and pushed. And then, you know, that may be kind of the thing that causes them to hit the...
Yeah, that was like the necessary thing.
So
It's
this
still recording, right, by the way?
Yeah. So this is the question that I'm like really the most interested in is what is the thing or what are the things? Like you said, man, it could be one comment or something and it's down. They're like, what are the things that send you to the low place that you've noticed?
I think if I were to give myself any credit at all, I'm really good at most of the time, I'm really good at not being heavily affected by someone else's words. And that's kind of been, I think, something that I've been good with.
But what are the words that get you?
I'd have to think about that for a long time.
Let's see. What can I say to Paulie that would tick him off?
Like, I just thought about, like, a lot of people deal with, especially like in high school and, you know, school age years, people deal with like peer pressure or there's a word that I'm trying to think of, just like self-consciousness, you know, and it's usually brought on by that peer pressure and people saying things about you. Like, I can say without a doubt when I was that age, especially like middle school and high school. Elementary school was a little bit different, but like middle school and high school and college, like I just didn't care. And I've been that way for most of my like adolescent through adult life, that I'm really good at just being like, now people do say things that get me mad. But for the most part, I don't take a lot of stuff that people say to heart.
I'm trying to think because there's one thing that I've seen you react to on multiple occasions, but I can't think of what it is.
You're just trying to prove me wrong. But I think overall, like I'm pretty good at that. So, but where the darkness comes from is almost always all me.
Right.
You know, it's like the thing 9 times out of 10 that brings me down is me. You know, and I guess I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing when it comes to being able to get out of a dark spot. Because I know who to blame, and I don't have the opportunity to say, "Oh, it's their fault."
Right.
You know what I mean? Like I'm able to take responsibility for myself because I'm the one that let me down. I forget what your question was, but yeah.
What are the things that send you? So I'll tell you what what I think I've discovered about myself, because I had a couple days the past couple weeks where it was just like low, just like confidence, motivation, all of it, like gone. And it was like hard, like uncharacteristic type days for me. And I was like, man, like what? I wasn't frustrated. I wasn't depressed. It was just like, just felt useless, which is really not like me in my normal state, And I think I figured out what it is. And I think it's like the fear of rejection, because in both scenarios, they both stemmed off of people like not, basically simply not responding to either messages or calls. No, just not responding. So then what happened in my head was like, if I was important, they would have reached back. And that's where it starts.
Right.
And it's like, I'm not important. I'm not important to them. I'm not important to anybody. I'm not important. I'm just going to sit here on the couch and die. It's like literally like, and it was like, and it happened. And, I like came back out of it. And a few days later, it's like, and what caught it is my wife was like, what's wrong? Like what? She could tell something was wrong. And I was like, I don't know. Like, it's just like that other day. And she was like, well, what's wrong? And I was like, people won't answer. And like, I started listing stuff. And I was like, that's what it is. Like I found it. Like, it was like, that's the root of it. Like, it was simply because I just felt as if people weren't valuing me. So like, it made me feel unimportant. It made me feel rejected. And it made me feel like, all right, well, like whatever, and it's so stupid. And it's like, in that moment, I can say that's not true. Right?
Right.
So it's like, it's not true, especially like when it's people we're working with, or when it's like, potential clients, or if it's like somebody who I deem important. Right. And it's like, I reach out and it's like nothing. And I'm like, oh, that's so disrespectful. Well, what am I, nobody? Well, I'm not important. I'm not important to anybody. I'm not important at all.
Nobody
and
loves
it's like,
me.
Right. And it's like, it's that thing. And in that moment, in that low moment, I can go, I'm being so stupid.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like, it doesn't help. You know what I'm saying? It's like, especially that time, like I realized it. So now what I'm trying to, and we've had this conversation before, is just being aware of the things. Like, how did that just make me feel? And like addressing it before you're down in this low place going, wait, why do I even feel like this? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So there's times now a lot in my life where I'll be in my car and I get that sinking feeling in my chest. And I'm like, and I like catch myself like sighing or being mad at somebody on the road. And I'm like, idiot. And I'm like sitting at the red light and I feel it and I'm like, wait, time out. What happened? And I'm literally like retracing my steps, because I know if I don't, the next thing is just going to add to it. And not only that, but whatever the next thing is, it may not even be negative, but because I'm already in there, my perspective will see it that way. And then it just piles on until finally I snap out of it. And a lot of times I don't even know what snaps me out of it. Sometimes it's just little things, but so that's what it is with me, is like, I've learned that when I get that feeling, dude, it's such like manifest so physical. Like, it's like a weight on my chest. And when I realize, I'm like, wait, stop. And I'm like retracing what happened. Okay, this person called me. This happened. I was over there. that email. I'm like, that's what it was. So I'm like, all right, what did the email say? You know what I mean? And I'm like, so I have to go through like, okay, I shouldn't feel that way about it.
Yeah, it's like what's the logical explanation rather than the emotional.
Right. And what can I do? Let me just reach back out. Let me, you know what I mean? Instead of like trying to tuck it aside and not deal with it, let me just see where the miscommunication happened or whatever, you know? So mine is that. I think it's just the fear that somebody would think that, or that they're just feeling like I'm not important to somebody.
Yeah.
Or not important in general.
So it's interesting
You know what I mean?
you say like, we've been talking a lot about the things that people say to us.
He poured water down.
I missed it.
We've been talking about the things that people say to us or like the way people react. But what you kind of mentioned, like trying to reach out to someone and then not hearing back is like the opposite of that. So someone didn't hurt your feelings or like wrong you because of what they said, but because they didn't say anything.
It's like what I envision in my mind is they're like, oh, this idiot. You know what I'm saying? And like, yeah, especially if it's you guys. But and it's another thing. It's like it really depends on the person. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? And it's like,
yeah,
you know, and it's like that with any relationship, I guess. You know, there's relationships that have different types of value and different things. And so yeah, that's what, man, that was a tough pill for me to swallow, because when I realized it that day, I was like, it's my fear of rejection, you know?
Right.
Like, oh, I'm not cool enough. I don't fit in. You know what I'm saying? I can't be in the band. I'm not cool enough.
So you said something. You said, because I kind of feel the same way, it does depend on the person for me. Like if I put up a video and somebody goes, yo, this video sucks and whoever made it sucks and they deserve to die. Like, I'll be like,
being that guy.
Without hiding your name, I'll know it's you. But when people that I don't know say things like that, it might bother me a little bit, but it doesn't really bring me down. It's just like, dang. And then it's like, I forget about it. I show my wife a video. My wife is very honest. And I've told my wife this before. If anybody can hurt my feelings in a split second or bring me down in a split second, it's my wife, because I care about what she thinks the most. So I show her all of my videos and she's super honest. And I want to I always encourage her, like, be honest with me, like hurt my feelings if you need to. And so I showed her the video that I put out. When she saw it, I was like, what do you think? She watched it. She laughed a couple times and then she was just like, eh. And she was like trying to figure out what to say. And I was like, just say it. She's like, I just don't get it. And that brought me all the way down to the point where as soon as she said it, my response was like, I'm not going to put it out. Forget it. And I wasn't mad at her.
You don't know nothing.
And I told her, like, you know, I wasn't mad at her. I didn't feel any way about her, but it was that confidence in that self-confidence that I was lacking that just like,
right.
It just brought it all the way down. And on top of that, not only is it things like that, but it's also, I have a really bad habit of comparing myself to others. So I'll have an original idea, but then I'll look at someone else's, like the quality of their production. I'm like, dang, yo, why doesn't mine look exactly like that? Or dang, he had so many better editing ideas than I did in his, you know what I'm saying? So I think those are the two things that I struggle with sometimes. It's just that acceptance from people whose words matter to me, and then comparing myself to others, even though I know I shouldn't. Those are the things for me that bring me down. So, but what I've learned to do also is that when those things happen is to push through it. Because when my wife said that and I felt like that, I sat there for a while and I felt that way and I allowed myself to feel that way.
Right. And
then I was like, you know what? Let me try to fix it up. Let me try to do something else to make it better. And I started doing stuff and I was telling him.
I'll show her.
I kept putting so many hours into it to the point where I showed it to her and she liked it better. Still wasn't her thing, but I was a little bit more confident in it. And I was just like, I'm going to put it out. I think I'm fine with putting it out. And I did.
Yeah. I think in respect to something that you were saying earlier, you kind of just mentioned in passing, and just I feel like it's necessary to say, we have to be careful when we're finding ourselves in somewhat of a negative spot. Because you said you were like, basically you mentioned like something that could be like a normal thing or a good thing that you were upset about because you were in a bad mood or in a bad place. And I think sometimes we have to be careful that when we're in a bad place, we can end up associating normal or good things with the negative place that we were in, and then end up with that that association sticking and having a negative outlook on what is otherwise a good thing for ourselves
or a good person.
Right. Yes.
You know, we can project, because of our negative perspective, we can project things onto people that they never intended, that they never even offered us.
Right.
You know,
like
we
the
can
lack
project
of someone,
it onto them, and then that can leave a lasting, for lack of a better word, that can put a bad taste in your mouth for that person, and you not even realize it,
and they not even be aware of it either.
Yeah.
Like you're saying, like someone not getting back to you.
Have you ever had like tension with somebody and you didn't even know why? Describes me and you.
Yeah.
I'm just kidding. No, I know why.
Because I'm cuter.
Yeah.
Just jealous.
But no, it's just weird because I'm so let's end it on this. This is what I want to live like. All right. I want to live at about 75.
Yeah.
Right?
It's a good number.
Above 50, below 100. And I want to basically go from 75 to 50 back to 75. You know, and it's like, I know that's very arbitrary and generic, but like, I want to be more steadfast. I want to be less excitable, and also less, help me.
De-energized.
De-excited.
De-excited.
So I want to be less excitable, but I also want to be a lot harder to bring down as well.
If I ever meet that Jeremy that's less excitable, I'm going to think something's wrong. Because you just get excited about things. Sometimes I'm like, why?
Like, give me an example. Hurt my feelings.
I'll have to think about a good one that'll really make you feel bad.
I'm still trying to think about the thing that like really ticks you off. Because there's like a certain thing that somebody can say.
I'm like anxious, not like in a negative way. Like I'm excited
because I've
to
seen
figure this out.
Because when you get angry, it's so obvious. like your whole countenance changes. Yeah. I mean, it's like
I'm not good at hiding my emotions.
It shows like crazy. So, but I'm trying to think. Like I've seen that flare up of anger in you.
I know one thing that bothers Polly is he doesn't like when people are just being difficult with him. Like you were talking about how you called Nando's the other day.
Yes.
And he tried to place an order over the phone and they wouldn't let him, and they wanted to redirect him to use their website, but then he had to put his debit card information.
I had to create an account, like all this stuff just to make
while he was driving,
just to order dinner. And then when I got there, like I was like, no, I'm not going to go on the website and make an order. And I got there thinking that they would just let me order while I'm there. They're only letting one person in, and it's just right inside the doorway. And I walked in and I was like, she's like, are you picking up? And I was like, no. I was already frustrated, but I was like, no, I'm not. I was like, I'm going to place an order. She's like, oh, you can't do that. And I was like, why not?
Why are you open?
She was like, you have to do it online. I was like, I'm right here. Can't I order here? And they had like takeout menus right there. She's like, we can't take your payment in store.
Bro, I love that place, but they building that corporate email list right now. That's all they're doing.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, they were like, they have takeout menus right there. Like you can't
that
order
frustrates him. I've seen him frustrated on phone calls. Plenty.
Yeah.
I'm not talking about that. I'm thinking about like in the working environment. I'm going to think of it. If I think of it later, we'll redo this whole podcast.
Educate me about myself.
But
I want to know.
That's my goal. That's like just to remain just a little more steadfast, a little less dynamic, and to stay on the high end of the spectrum more so. And I feel like I'm getting better at that. I feel like now we've talked about this too. I don't ever want to stop getting excited about things.
Yeah.
100 is fun, but I don't want to live there. You know what I'm saying? Like I want to go there sometimes, but I don't want to like need that in order to operate.
I'm not gonna argue against your percentages, but I will say that having and this is just my opinion. You guys might disagree. Having ups and downs, even considerable ups and downs, are necessary for perspective.
Right. So the full description of that is that I want to live there, but then also with the understanding that I'm going to have seasons. I'm going to have moments where I'm low.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But there's a lot of good that comes out of those moments too, you know?
But you know what, for me, because I didn't really explain this earlier, I don't live at 100 a lot. My 100 comes when something's completed. So like we just had a recent client that I was excited to do a video for.
You live about 60, don't you?
I do.
I really do. That's the number I would give you, about 60.
Because you'll mention like an opportunity and I'm happy about it, but I'm not at 100. But if we execute and we complete it and we put it out there.
This is the Kenny not 100 response. What do you think? Yeah, it's cool.
Well, because
Let's do it.
Because I have experienced getting excited and then things being taken away from me or things not working out. And it's just like, So I think, not purposely, but I think that some way, somehow I've developed a sense of like just not being super excited at a 100 level. Now, once this client project is done and they put it out and it's over, I'll probably be at 100 for a little bit. I'm like, oh man.
Especially seeing feedback from other people.
Right. I'll be happy about it. Yeah. But right now, when you first sent it to me, it's maybe like 60, 70. Now I'm like 50 because I'm just like chilling. When it's done and it's out, I'm going to hit 100. And if people say it suck, then I'll go back down to 0.
Yeah. So what are the, whatever our goal is, like where we want to live, like let's talk about quickly the things that we know that we can do to keep us in a healthy zone. So I know for me, just having realistic expectations, like, and not putting false assumptions onto other people's actions.
Sure.
That's my thing. One thing we've talked about a lot, because I've experienced this and I see this in some other people, is that just do the things that you know you should do. Like, don't avoid the things that you know. We talk about eating the frog, wherever we got that reference from. It's a book or something. Where it's just like that thing. That's one thing I nail. Like, I'm confident in this. That is my thing now. It's like wake up in the morning. What is the suckiest thing I have to do today? And it's like the first thing I do. Like, just forget it. I can do this for the next 3 months or I can finish it today. You know what I mean? And that's just how I am. Like, I'm just going to knock it out because I don't want to think about it anymore. Yeah. So sometimes that, just like putting the false assumptions on other people's actions and just spiraling into that negative thought, neglecting to do the things that you're responsible to do, like putting things off. What else? What else can we do to live in the healthy zone?
I would. You said having real expectations for ourselves, right?
Yeah. Well, yeah. Real expectations in general. Yeah.
I just think like trying your best to be, and this is something that you kind of touched on. Yeah, that's great. Something you kind of touched on. Oh God, this is bad.
People listening are like, what's going on? Polly's doing a bunch of stupid stuff. Just
please watch the video so you know the truth. Oh crap, what was I going to say?
I derailed everything.
Yeah.
I hope you never remember.
The realistic expectations was
Don't help
where
me.
you started.
You're on your own.
I'm not sure.
Is this helping?
All right.
Okay.
You got something?
No.
Maybe it'll come back to me.
You're using up all our tape. We got to move on. We still record on tape.
tape. We got filming.
You waste our film.
We are filming and you have your cell phone on? Rush
Yeah, I'm
hour.
standing next to Jackie. You want to talk to Jackie? They want to talk to you, Jackie. Well, you waste our film.
Jackie
Is
Chan is great.
this? Are we done with this topic? Is that what just happened?
It sounds like it. Nope.
Okay. You're done. You good?
I think I am.
I would be interested
Oh,
to know.
it was being
of
honest with-
course. Every time we're ending,
Dang it.
he's like,
It was just be honest with yourself. Like you were talking about like retracing your steps and trying to find like where perhaps that source
right.
of like that downward trajectory. Try to exercise self-awareness in that way. Find out the things that make you mad. And
Name
then,
the enemy.
right. And then when you, because I think it's a muscle that we have to work out. You know, it's not going to be easy at first especially to find like all of the things that brought you down. Because it might have just been one thing that got you, but it might have been, like we've said, things compounding. But work on it regularly because it will get easier. You'll become more in control of your emotions and more aware of how the world and outside and inside affects you. So
Yeah, and I think you said it already. I don't know if you said this, but also just like realize that there's going to be that dynamic change in your ups and downs, and that's okay. Mm-hmm. You're going to have down periods and allow yourself to experience those down periods. But I would say try to limit that. Like give yourself a time frame. You know, I feel down right now. I'm going to feel down for the next 30 minutes and then I'm going to move on.
And then figure out the people who speak the things to you that take you out of that place.
Yeah.
I have a few people in my life that can
That's
just
good.
like immediately, just like, and Phil's one of those people in a sense where Phil can just snatch you up physically and emotionally, where like you can say something and he just has a response.
Tough love.
And it's like the other day, I was like, man, I'm just trying to figure out I want to do this. And he was like, bro, Phil's always like 3 words and it's always bro. He's like, bro, be still. And I was like, huh, yeah, I could do that. And the other one, like a month before, was, bro, say less. Huh. Yeah. Like we need to do a book, like Phil Proverbs, 2-word Proverbs. Like he would nail it.
calm down.
Yeah, that was another one.
Yeah.
Bro, calm down. And it was like, oh yeah, that's an option.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? He like, for some reason, his words, like, it can immediately
Yeah.
snap you out of
He's
it.
good at that.
And then I have other people too.
My favorite philism is why.
No, why are you mad? Why are you mad, bro?
Just
I'm
any
like,
why.
dang.
Like I remember a conversation with him about
Why?
like
Like,
like
it's
business
like
related
he
things and
hits
like
you with that.
my apprehension. And he's like, why? And I'm like, I don't
But it-
know. I'm sorry.
But it makes you
Why?
think.
And then you're like, yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like, so he does that. And then I have other people too, man. Like Kyle and Brian are 2 people that
Yeah.
I can just like, if I'm like down, I can just hit them up. And, you know, Kyle's one of those people where it's like, you know, he cares about you, but he also makes light of everything. It's like, it's just his personality. So you're like, yeah, this and that. And he's like, so like, you gonna die? And you're just like, I hate you so much. But, you know, he actually, and it's because, you know, he does care and he's deposited so much into the relationship that he can operate in his personality, and then it just helps. And then next thing you know, you're talking about Survivor for an hour. And then you get off the phone and you feel better and you're like, wait, what just happened? You know, he's like, he tricked me again, you know? So, you know, just, you know, be aware that there are people in your life that can bring you down. There's people that can build you up, and rely on those people when you need to.
I love you, Mom. That's my mommy. She brings me up.
Oh, this is going to come out the day after Mother's Day, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
I love you too, Mom. You don't listen to this, but that's fine.
Apparently my mom does, as we discovered at the
We
beginning.
love Paulie's mom. I just sounded like somebody from Bob's Burgers. I think Bob's wife.
Linda.
Linda, wait, don't do that. Why are you doing that?
Great show.
Come on, Bob.
You saw that?
I sounded like her, did I? No.
Yeep.
Maybe it's because I'm hearing, well, you guys are hearing me in the headphones too. I'm embarrassed. Can we end this?
Jeremy's career as a voice actor has already failed because he has no confidence.
Come on. No, that wasn't a good one. I love Bob's
There's
Burgers.
a little bit of a raspiness that you're missing, I think.
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you. Love you guys. Thanks for listening. Man, I mean, this is just talking about dynamic. This podcast goes from 100 to 0 real quick, and we're going to quit while we're at 0. But hey, if you're watching this, thank you. But also, put like in the comments, like what type of person are you? Are you like very dynamic? Is it gradual? Are you even keeled, steadfast? Like what's the deal with you? I'd like to know. I want to know if I'm
What's
weird.
your deal?
What's your deal? All right, love you guys. See you.